Emirates Airlines, the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa, along with million-dollar supercars and yachts, are all located in Dubai and controlled by Sheikh Mohammed, the richest billionaire in this oil-rich land. If you're curious about how he amassed this empire with his money, this video is for you. Watch until the end, or you'll miss why. Through subtle strategies, power, and groundbreaking vision, a national empire can be built and sustained to become a global center of control. Building Dubai as machinery. What if everything you thought about Dubai is backwards? What if the skyline, the towers, the artificial islands, all of it is not about wealth display, but about constructing a command system so overwhelming that the entire world has no choice but to become dependent on it? Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum controls $4 billion on paper. But that number is a lie. That number measures only what he owns, not what he controls. And the difference between those two is the difference between a billionaire and someone reshaping global commerce itself. Dubai did not grow the way normal cities grow. There was no organic expansion, no accidental boom driven by population pressure. What emerged from the desert was not a city reacting to demand, but a system engineered to create demand and trap it. Every major pillar, aviation, logistics, real estate, finance, was designed in advance and deployed simultaneously. This was not sequential development. This was overwhelming coordination happening all at once. Emirates Airlines received early aircraft orders exceeding $10 billion, not for regional routes, for global dominance through strategic choke points. Dubai Ports World, now valued at over $70 billion, did not aim to own cargo. It aimed to own access itself, to control where goods enter and exit the global economy. Burj Khalifa, valued at approximately $20 billion, did not need to generate revenue. It existed to rewire perception overnight. Rising over 828 meters, it declared to the world that Dubai was no longer optional. When you understand this, you realize something terrifying. These pillars advanced at the same time. Aviation, logistics, real estate, tourism, and finance all moved forward together. Markets could not adapt fast enough to challenge the direction. Competitors could not isolate a single weakness. Everything reinforced everything else. By the time the world understood what Dubai had become, it was already too integrated to ignore. Flights passed through it. Cargo depended on it. Investors anchored portfolios to it. Dubai stopped behaving like a place and started behaving like power itself. This reveals a fundamental truth most people never understand. True power is not measured in net worth. It is measured in how many decisions require your approval before they can exist at all. The horses that unlock old money. There is another dimension to Sheikh Mohammed's power that operates far from the spectacle of Dubai's skyline. Long before the towers rose, he understood something most modern billionaires have forgotten. The world's oldest and most durable power networks do not meet in boardrooms. They meet on racetracks where old money, sovereign families, and legacy dynasties gather in private lounges where deals are understood, not announced. In 1992, Sheikh Mohammed founded Cadal Fion Racing, not as a hobby or entertainment venture, but as a deliberate strategic operation designed to penetrate the global old money network. While others bought racehorses to win headlines, he built an industrial-scale ecosystem spanning multiple continents. Training facilities in Dubai, Ireland, the United Kingdom, the United States, and Japan operated with annual costs reaching tens of millions of dollars. These were not traditional stables. They were controlled environments with climate regulation systems, custom racing surfaces engineered to exact specifications, and veterinary medical teams operating at standards closer to aerospace engineering than agriculture. Within 3 decades, horses under his operation accumulated over 5,000 international race victories, a record unmatched by any private owner in modern racing. But this was never about sporting achievement. It was about access. At elite auctions, Sheikh Mohammed spent $16 million in a single session to acquire just 10 thoroughbred horses. Each purchase was calculated with precision. Bloodlines were traced across generations. Performance metrics were analyzed across different climates and track types. This was capital deployment disguised as sport. At the center of this network stood exclusive breeding rights. Stud fees reached staggering levels. One stallion under his control commanded $200,000 per breeding session, instantly filtering participation to only sovereign families, legacy dynasties, and old money institutions capable of affording entry. Every breeding agreement became a relationship. Every contract became a private conversation. Racecourses in Ascot, Chantilly, Kentucky, and Tokyo function not as sporting venues but as neutral diplomatic zones. No press conferences, no treaties, no public records. Just private lounges, shared ownership structures, and long-term trust built over decades of consistent presence. Crucially, Sheikh Mohammed avoided celebrity status within the racing world. He did not chase cameras. He did not perform victories. His presence was felt through consistency, discipline, and silence. Horses ran. Results accumulated. Access deepened into relationships with power brokers who control centuries of wealth. Through racing, Sheikh Mohammed embedded himself into networks that predate modern finance, media, and technology systems governed entirely by lineage, patience, and reputation. Once inside such networks, influence does not need explanation. Power that moves quietly does not compete for attention, it waits for invitations. Comment below. Do you believe Sheikh Mohammed's racing strategy is genuine passion or the most sophisticated power move ever executed in sports? Why land beats money when power needs permanence? What happens when capital flows shift? What happens when political winds change? What happens when the systems you built face unexpected pressure? Money moves fast. Capital crosses borders in seconds, shifts currencies overnight, and disappears the moment risk appears. But land does not move. Land cannot be moved. And for rulers who understand power at scale, land is not a lifestyle choice. Land is an anchor, permanent, immovable, impossible to freeze or sanction. At the center of Dubai's territorial authority stands Zabeel Palace, a compound valued at hundreds of millions of dollars when land, infrastructure, and layered security systems are accounted for. It is often described as a royal residence, but that description fundamentally understates its actual function. Zabeel Palace operates as a command hub positioned deliberately between old Dubai and the modern financial districts. From within its perimeter, aviation policy is shaped, infrastructure expansion is planned, sovereign coordination occurs, long-term development strategies are determined. The palace does not symbolize power, it executes it in real time, but domestic anchoring is insufficient. Beyond Dubai's mainland, Sheikh Mohammed controls two private man-made islands off the coastline. Their development costs alone reach hundreds of millions of dollars, yet they remain unlisted, unbranded, and absent from public real estate markets. These islands generate no revenue. They exist outside the economy entirely, no real estate brokers, no valuation disclosures, no transactional exposure. In a city famous for reclaiming land from the sea, absolute private ownership of islands signals the highest tier of spatial control territory that belongs to no one else, operates under no supervision, and follows no external rules. Yet domestic control proves insufficient for someone operating at Sheikh Mohammed's scale. True resilience requires territory and jurisdictions that matter politically and historically. This is why his most strategic properties sit quietly in the United Kingdom, far from Dubai's spectacular skyline. Longcross Estate in Surrey was acquired for approximately $75 million. Spread across dense woodland, the estate is secured by layered access controls, perimeter surveillance, and buffer zones that make intrusion practically impossible without immediate detection. Longcross is not optimized for visibility or entertainment. It is optimized for seclusion, allowing long-term residence without exposure. Properties of this nature cannot function as celebrity homes. They function only for state-level actors who require absolute privacy and uninterrupted operational capacity. Further north lies Dalham Hall, purchased for roughly $45 million, spanning over 3,300 acres, with 39 separate buildings. The estate operates as a self-contained environment. Lakes, roads, internal infrastructure, and agricultural land eliminate reliance on external systems. This is not luxury. This is strategic insulation designed so that when global pressure increases and dependence becomes vulnerability, Sheikh Mohammed already possesses complete independence. What unites these properties is intent. None were acquired for appreciation. None were positioned for resale. They are fixed points of authority in stable jurisdictions, where land ownership quietly generates relationships with governments, security agencies, and local infrastructure providers. Roads are maintained. Airspace restrictions adjust. Discretion becomes institutionalized. Influence forms without announcement. How and here becomes a ruler. How does someone even acquire the capacity to make decisions at this scale? How does a human being develop the psychological ability to move billions of dollars and reshape cities? The answer reveals something most people never consider. Power was not inherited by Sheikh Mohammed. Power was trained into him before he ever received it. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum was not born into automatic privilege. He was born into preparation. The Al Maktoum family, rulers of Dubai since 1833, never believed power could be inherited, intact and functional. Power had to be trained, it had to be tested. It had to be conditioned or it would collapse under its own weight. Unlike heirs who grow up insulated by ceremony and protection, Sheikh Mohammed was exposed early to consequence. His education was designed to harden decision-making, not polish image. That is why he was sent to the United Kingdom, where British military doctrine emphasized hierarchy, accountability, speed, and chain of command. This was not cultural exchange. This was operational conditioning. By age 22, Sheikh Mohammed was appointed Minister of Defense of the United Arab Emirates, placing him in direct control of national security infrastructure worth billions of dollars. At an age when most future leaders were still protected by advisors, he was signing off on military logistics, procurement decisions, and regional coordination with real-world consequences. Mistakes here carried immediate cost. That pressure was deliberate, designed to remove hesitation before power ever arrived in absolute form. Before ascending to the highest leadership roles, he was placed in charge of Dubai Police, a position forcing exposure to the city's operational reality. Crime patterns, internal inefficiencies, corruption risks, and enforcement limits were no longer theoretical concepts. They were measurable variables requiring decision-making. Under his leadership, modernization programs costing hundreds of millions of dollars were deployed to streamline command structures, reduce response times, and centralize authority. The lesson became clear. Systems outperform personalities. The system mattered more than any individual within it. This sequence mattered profoundly. Sheikh Mohammed did not inherit power and then learn governance. He learned governance first while being monitored, corrected, and tested within the family structure. Authority became familiar long before it became absolute. By the time he reached the top, leadership no longer felt ceremonial, it felt procedural. Inside the royal family, the same discipline applied. Access to resources was structured, responsibilities were assigned early, loyalty was monitored constantly, independence was permitted only if it strengthened the overall system rather than fragmenting it. What emerged from decades of this training was a leadership style closer to a corporate command center than a traditional monarchy. Decisions were expected to be fast. Execution was non-negotiable. Failure was tolerated once, never twice. Authority flowed downward without confusion. Responsibility flowed upward without delay. This explains why Dubai moved at a speed that confused the outside world. The city did not accelerate because of oil or money or opportunity. It accelerated because its ruler had already spent decades operating under pressure, managing scale, and absorbing accountability long before any skyline existed. Once power is trained that early, ambition stops being reckless. It becomes inevitable. Comment below. Do you think Sheikh Mohammed's training style should be applied to modern leadership, or does centralized power create dangerous concentration? Silence speaks louder than wealth. At the highest level of power, luxury stops being about enjoyment. It stops being about comfort. Luxury becomes language. Luxury becomes a weapon. For Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, every visible asset exists to define hierarchy without explanation. Every possession communicates authority. This is not wealth-seeking admiration. This is authority shaping belief in those who observe it. The clearest symbol moves silently across international waters, beyond borders, beyond jurisdiction. His super yacht, Dubai, is valued at approximately $400 million and stretches over 530 feet in length. Calling it a yacht fundamentally understates its actual function. It is a mobile, sovereign space engineered to operate completely beyond borders and international jurisdiction. Inside are 28 private suites, a full cinema, multiple lounges, and layered security systems designed for extended residence at sea. Beneath the main deck sits a private submarine, built not for exploration or leisure but for contingency for escape when necessary. Above it, a helipad capable of handling military-grade helicopters ensures uninterrupted mobility and rapid deployment anywhere on Earth. This yacht does not exist for leisure. It exists for preparedness disguised as elegance. It represents the architecture of contingency planning at a scale most people cannot comprehend. Sheikh Mohammed can conduct business, host diplomatic discussions, and operate his entire empire from international waters where no nation's laws apply. He can disappear from public view while maintaining complete operational control. The same logic once appeared on land with a different purpose entirely. His wedding to Princess Salama remains one of the most expensive private ceremonies ever staged anywhere on Earth. A custom-built stadium constructed specifically for 20,000 guests was erected solely for this event, then dismantled completely afterward. The total cost reached tens of millions of dollars. There were no broadcast rights. No official footage was released. No commercial value was extracted. Attendance itself was the signal. Those invited understood they were witnessing precedent. They were being chosen to witness power, not celebration. What gives this luxury its actual weight is restraint. These assets are rarely seen. They are never commercialized for public consumption. No branding, no tours, no public narratives explaining their value. Scarcity amplifies authority. The less often these symbols appear, the heavier they land when they do appear. The psychological impact compounds with invisibility. Unlike modern billionaires who convert possessions into personal brands, turning yachts into Instagram content, mansions into media narratives, private jets into status symbols, Sheikh Mohammed allows myth to do the work. His luxury speaks only to peers, rivals, and institutions that understand scale instinctively. At that level, comparison becomes unnecessary. The conversation ends before it begins. No discussion occurs because everyone already understands the implications of what they are observing. This represents the pinnacle of power architecture. Control over systems, power anchored to land, myth-making that discourages challenge. This is not the lifestyle of a rich man. This is the architecture of authority designed to feel inevitable, inescapable, and unchallengeable. When you combine systems-level control with strategic land ownership, add old money network access, layer on decades of trained discipline, and cap it all with luxury that communicates through silence and absence, you do not have a billionaire. You have someone who has transcended wealth entirely and entered the realm of shaping reality itself, the $4 billion lie. Now we must pause and ask the fundamental question that everything you've seen contradicts. What if everything we believe about measuring wealth is backwards? What if the richest person in Dubai is not the one with the highest net worth, the flashiest assets, or the most visible luxury, but the one whose decisions quietly reshape an entire city? In a place famous for gold-plated supercars, record-breaking towers, and artificial islands, wealth is easy to see. Power is invisible. And confusing the two is the biggest mistake most people make when they look at Dubai. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum is worth $4 billion on paper. That number is verified. That number is frequently cited by financial institutions, but treating that $4 billion as the measure of his wealth completely misses the architecture of his actual power. Because net worth counts ownership, not control. And Dubai was not built by ownership. It was built by authority exercised at scale. When a decision is made at the top, entire industries realign beneath it. Airlines expand routes, ports acquire terminals. Real estate districts appear where sand existed weeks before. This is not market momentum. This is centralized power in motion. This is not wealth-seeking admiration. This is authority shaping belief in millions of people who have never met him. The moment you understand this distinction, Dubai looks completely different. It looks like an achievement that transcends billionaire status. It looks like someone who has engineered a platform where billions of dollars in capital flow, not because Sheikh Mohammed is wealthy, but because he has made himself indispensable. This is why asking how rich is he is the wrong question. The real question is, how many decisions require his approval before they can exist at all? In Dubai, the answer is unsettlingly high. And that is the difference between someone who owns assets and someone who moves reality itself. Ownership stops mattering. Return to the beginning and ask the question differently. What if everything we believe about measuring wealth is fundamentally wrong? What if net worth is not just incomplete but misleading in a way that obscures the actual nature of power? Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum is worth $4 billion on paper. That is the official number. That is what financial statements report. That is what Forbes publishes. But that number measures only what he owns, not what he controls. It measures assets, not authority. It measures wealth, not power, because power is not ownership. Power is the ability to make decisions that reshape reality for millions of people. Power is the capacity to create systems where others have no choice but to become dependent on your decisions. Power is what happens when you control the airports through which people travel, the ports through which goods move, the real estate where they build their futures, and the financial systems through which they conduct business. When you understand this distinction, Dubai looks completely different. It looks like an achievement that transcends billionaire status. It looks like someone who has engineered a platform where billions of dollars in capital flow, not because Sheikh Mohammed is wealthy, but because he has made himself indispensable. People invest in Dubai not because Sheikh Mohammed asks them to, but because they have no choice. The system is designed so that not investing in Dubai means being excluded from global commerce itself. This is why asking, "How rich is he?" is the wrong question. The real question is, how many decisions require his approval before they can exist at all? In Dubai, the answer is unsettlingly high. And that is the difference between someone who owns assets and someone who moves reality. Sheikh Mohammed does not own Dubai, he controls it. And in the architecture of true power, control is worth infinitely more than ownership could ever be. Comment below, if you had to choose between owning billions in assets or controlling the systems that shape how billions move, which would you choose? After seeing how Dubai was built, 3 lessons become impossible to ignore. There are 3 critical lessons embedded throughout this story. Lesson 1. True wealth is control, not cash. Airlines, ports, real estate, and logistics formed a system where money follows decisions, not the other way around. Lesson 2. Speed beats consensus. Dubai rose because authority was centralized, execution was immediate, and hesitation was treated as a liability. Lesson 3. Permanence beats flexibility. Power anchors itself in what cannot move: land, infrastructure, and long-term systems, while money stays flexible and silent. If this changed how you see wealth and power, hit like and subscribe to Wealth Dominion to support the channel and help these stories reach further. Thank you for watching, and stay with us, because the next revelation will challenge everything you thought you understood about real power.